Good morning. My name is Seamus, and I'm here to talk this morning about cognitive therapy. And the word cognitive therapy sometimes puts people off because it's like, oh my God, what kind of other stuff are they hurling at us? And cognitive is a word that just means thinking. Cognitions are how you think or how you understand things. So that's why at the top of the board I have written something from a book that is the most recommended book that has to do with depression and anxiety, and it's a cognitive therapy book, and it's called Feeling Good. It's by Dr. Burns of University of Pennsylvania Medical School. And I refer to him in some of the sheets. But the statement is, all your moods are created by the way you are looking at things. So if you're feeling bad or down this morning, you are looking at your life and thinking about your life in a negative way this morning. And once we get that very basic principle in our minds, that how we think about things determines how we feel about things. And that's the essence of cognitive therapy. Now, this is not some newfangled, something that came out of pixie dust of the 70s or something like that. Cognitive therapy, if you look at your sheets, the first quote I have on your sheets is from a man called Epictetus, who was a Greek philosopher who lived in Rome as a slave. He was born in 55 AD, and he was a very prominent philosopher. Any of you who are familiar with Roman history will know that the Greeks were the people who educated the Romans. So he was the tutor of Marcus Aurelius, one of the few very good Roman emperors. But Epictetus makes a very significant statement. He said, it is not external events. Think about it. It is not external events that distress us. It is our interpretation of their significance. It is how you are thinking about things that is determining how you feel about things, not how things are. And people are going around saying, oh, that makes me feel this way, and that makes me feel that way. No, it doesn't make you feel that way. It's your thinking about it that makes you feel that way. And there's like hundreds, thousands of examples of it. I had a guy the other day, a client of mine came in, and we're talking about cognitive therapy. He's been working on it, and he said, I don't want to talk about cognitive therapy today. I said, why not? He said, because I'm feeling so shitty. And I said, why are you feeling so bad? And he said, nobody has called me in the last 5 days. And he said, I've been telling myself I'm old, I'm irrelevant, nobody cares about me. And I said, oh, and you get this from the fact that nobody has called you in the past 5 days? And he said, yeah. I said, well, maybe there's another way to think about this. Well, we worked on cognitive therapy. Maybe the people who would call him just weren't calling him and stuff. He called me back 2 hours later, and he said, I forgot to mention, I have a new phone. And when I went and found out 26 people had called me, so here, it's not the reality at all. It's like, we're going around without this realization that is so basic. And it's so basic that our people, Homo sapiens, mankind, has known about this for thousands of years, and a lot of us are only getting it in the 21st century. And we only get it because we had the misfortune of becoming addicts and alcoholics and having to go to treatment. And there in treatment, we learned the wisdom that's been common knowledge to our people for thousands of years. I mean, I think this is pretty amazing. So cognitive just means how I think about things. And this statement up above, I'm going to take it off, but it says all your moods are created by the way you are looking at things. We'll get to a little bit more examples of this, but what I want to talk about and why cognitive therapy is so important for us in recovery. You know that you came in here and you spent a certain number of weeks in here. And you're going back out into the world, right? Into your lives. That world has not changed. And if we go out into that world with the same reactions we had in the past, guess what's going to happen? It's going to have the same effect on us. We're going to want something that will allow us to escape and run from it. And so the issue really is how we need to learn to manage what we call stress. Stress. And what is stress? What is stress? You know what stress is? Have you ever been stressed?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stress, just feeling overwhelmed about external events.
Right. You feel overwhelmed.
Nervous, anxious.
Nervous, anxious. You ever been stressed?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Just feeling, I guess, overwhelmed and wanting to escape.
I got so many things to do. I'm so stressed. But technically, stress is when my body reacts to all of that. Stress is not those are stressors. Those are things causing stress. The overwhelm, all the things I have to do and take care of and arrange and whatnot, those are stressors. But stress is actually what my body does in reaction to that. And I wanted to do some of my really bad drawings, but to try to illustrate to you like how your thinking causes you to feel, first of all, and then how does a feeling become something that happens in your body? How does a thought become a feeling, and how does a feeling do something to your body? Because believe me, guys, that's what causes so much. If I went around, and those of you who have been sober for some period of time in the past, and I asked you what brought on your relapse, not everybody, but a large number of those who relapse will tell you something was happening and they just got a case of the, excuse me, the fuckets, right? The fuckets. Anybody know what the fuckets are? Huh? You all know, almost all of you know what the fuckets are. What's the fuckets?
Going in the south, can't handle it, gonna go out.
Yeah, I don't care. And somebody can tell you, do you know what's going to happen if you use or drink again? You go, I don't care, fuck it, right? We just get it, and it's a form of exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. It resembles and may even be a form of depression. And it's certainly a depressed state. Whether or not it's real, total depression, I think, some psychiatrists would need to tell you that. But here's what seems to happen And I want to talk about the way our brain is constructed this way. We have like our spine comes up like this here. And then on the top of our spine, we have this knobby area. It's got a kind of a dome out here. But this is the most basic part of my brain. And it's often called the reptile brain. And that's the part of the brain that's right at the top of your spine, right back in here. And that basic brain stem is what it's often called. It's the most basic part of your brain, and it controls your digestion, your all of your bodily functions, right down to your eyelid flutter, to lubricate your eyes, your breathing, your diaphragm, your heart, all are run from the brainstem. This is why, like when you read in the papers every so often about kids in college having a drinking contest, and they'll, slam, alcohol back. And at some point, what happens to them is they knock the brainstem out. They anesthetize it. And what happens when you anesthetize the brainstem? You die. You die. You can knock out the frontal lobe, you can knock out the whole cortex, you can knock out the limbic system, but the minute you knock out this most basic part of the brain, you're gone. And that's why one of the highest levels of malpractice insurance is carried by an anesthesiologist, because an anesthesiologist takes you down to the brink, but does not let your brainstem stop working. So anyway, this part of the brain is sitting on top of the spine, and all the way down the spine you have all these nerves, and the nerves come out at various places, run the heart and the diaphragm and the bowels and the digestive system, and all of these things are run from the spine and the nerves that come down the spine. So this is the primitive part of the brain. Around and sitting sort of on top of it is a part of the brain that's called the limbic brain, L-I-M-B-I-C. The limbic brain, it's often called also the mammal brain, because it's what we have sort of in common with all other mammals. And it has emotions and feelings. And so you can see that if you are having an emotion and this part of your brain is sitting on top of this, I mean, it has direct effect on everything. Did any of you ever get so scared you had to go to the bathroom? I had a scary piano teacher every Friday evening. I mean, I would be walking down the street going to the piano teacher, and I always had to go to the bathroom. You get scared enough. Do you ever see in the movies, somebody who's really scared and you see the puddle at their feet, I mean, it literally scared the piss out of them, right? I mean, and we have these expressions, and they didn't just come out of the air, it scared the shit out of me, right? These things, literally, when this limbic brain is feeling fear, it is reacting all the way down here, and your sphincters let loose. The things that keep you from wetting yourself or shitting yourself or something, they all get loosened, right? So what I'm trying to say is, is that our feelings are directly involved in our physical bodies. They're not like separate things that just happen in your mind. It's all in your head. No, it's not in your head. If you get scared enough, you'll know it's not in your head. People get upset stomach. Do you ever get a pain in your stomach when you're angry? I used to think that sometimes my wife was making it up when she would say, I've got a pain in my stomach, because I knew she was pissed off. but she actually was having a pain in her stomach from being angry. We have a lot of, and the two words that are really important to know about this is psyche is the mind, right? And what's the word for the body? Soma. So when you have something psychosomatic, it's not saying it's in your head, right? It's saying what is happening in your head is causing what's happening in your body. Psychosomatic does not mean imaginary. Psychosomatic means what's happening in my mind is causing stuff happen in my body. So this is like, I'm just trying to build the connections here. Now, this here is the newer part of the brain. It's newer than this. But then the most recent part of the brain, and it's called, as you might expect for something new, it's called neo, right? Neo means new when you see it in front of something. Neo-Nazis, you read about neo-Nazis. What are neo-Nazis?
The new form of Nazi.
The new form of Nazis, neo-whatever. So neoconservatives, so neocortex. That's the new cover on the brain. Cortex means the bark. So a cortex, so it's like a new outer layer of the brain. And what happens in the new outer layer of the brain is thinking. So this is the very specifically human part of the brain here, the cortex. The limbic is the feeling or the emotional part, and this here is the reptilian or the basic physiological brain. So what happens, Elizabeth, what happens when you then have a thought about something, say, coming up like 6 months or something that worries you? What you have a thought, right? You're maybe in bed, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And you wake up and you start thinking about down the road, right? After treatment, after everything, right? And you know, something you think about causes you to worry, right? So you have the thought, and the thought causes you to have a feeling, right, of worry, which is you're anxious, yeah. And anxiety is a form of fear, right? That kind of, you're dreading, you're feeling worried about the future. You're worried about, you know, what am I going to do? Am I going to be able to stay sober? Am I going to be able to, what about money? What about job? What about all of the things, relationships? We start thinking about these things, and every thought you have a feeling. And the feeling part is sitting right on top of your spine, so it's affecting everything in your body through your nervous system. And as they say in the television commercials, but that's not all, right? So here is when we get to what is exactly stress. There's a part here in the limbic brain called the hypothalamus, and on the end of the hypothalamus is a gland, and that's the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland is like an accelerator. It's like an accelerator, a very sensitive hair trigger accelerator, that the minute your thought causes you a flicker of anxiety, right? This here produces a secretion, a hormone, a chemical messenger, if you like. And that messenger, in a split second, goes down and it activates our adrenal glands. And we have an adrenal gland sitting one on each side on top of our kidneys. And so this here just sends this, that immediately activates the adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands pump into your bloodstream in another fraction of a second, a microsecond. Your bloodstream is flooded with cortisol. And cortisol, C-O-R-T-I-S-O-L, cortisol. Cortisol is what stress is. When your body releases cortisol, you are officially stressed. Cortisol is this powerfully toxic chemical messenger that rearranges your entire body, I mean, in amazing ways. It changes your blood flow. It changes the quality of your blood. It suspends your immune system. It activates all the way through your digestive system, your bowels. And so cortisol, when it's released, totally rearranges your body in preparation for the next thing that your adrenals release, which is epinephrine or adrenaline. So this is what you're lying at bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and your mind is kind of scanning around about the future. How many of you have minds that scan the future? Yeah, I know. And we scan the future, and there's a cost for it, right? The cost is that my thought, which appears to be just, oh, I was just thinking about that. No, you weren't. You